So, a reminder, we have 4 microphones set up. We have the 2 microphones at the front, the 2 in the back. And this is an opportunity to ask questions and have some discussion with the elders that spoke this morning and the youth that spoke this morning. I know there is a lot of information that we have to share, but just a reminder that if you're not able to speak and you have a story to tell, and I know that each and every one of you that is here has a story to tell, just a reminder that the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation is also here. They have a booth out in the foyer, and they are here doing statement gathering. So we know that you have a story to share. We know that you have a story to tell. We encourage you to go and share your story so that it can be documented and we have it for the record, and that story can be shared. So we encourage you to do that. I know that we do not have the time, the opportunity for everyone to speak at all of the microphone sessions. So I'd just like to remind everyone of that. So again, we'll get started. I know people are just coming in, but we'll tone down the discussions. Reminder, everybody, turn off your, mute your cell phones, and we will get underway. So we'll have our first open mic session, the elder from Chisasibi. But a reminder, we'd like to focus on asking questions of the panelists that are here. So with that, I'll turn to the elder from Chisasibi.
Wachia. Hello, everybody. My name is Clara Spencer Napash. I'm a survivor of residential schools. First of all, I'd like to show my appreciation to the person and his wife, the man and his wife who organized this trip from us to be able to attend this gathering. His name is Georgie Bachano. I don't know if he's in the room. Thank you, George. Thank you, Mary Louise, and the support group. Also, I'd like to thank the people of Toronto for answering our call in which we wanted to really attend this meeting. I'm a survivor of 13 years. I was put in the school at 2 years old. I wasn't taken. There was no other place for me to stay because I had lost my mother from childbirth and my delivering my sister. At that time, the woman only had her babies in teepees, and that's where somebody attended to her, but there were no nurses or doctors, so the placenta couldn't come out, and she bled to death. And my grandparents took me in, and when the school opened in August, they had to go to the bush because my grandfather was working for the Hudson Bay. They had a store along the coast for the people to bring their furs in, and they had no other choice but to go there. And he asked the principal if I was able to stay at the school, and the principal agreed. and that's where I grew up till I was 15 years old. My grandmother took care of me during the summer holidays, like June 15 to August 15. Then I'd go back to school. But in the long run, I was lucky to have a lot of mothers during that time in school. The older girls acted as my guardians and also the supervisor. The thing I really wanted to tell you guys is I'm not a high school student. I only went to grade 6, but for the, if my English isn't that good, bear with me. I'll just summarize her life, because I know there's a lot of people that have to tell their stories. I'm on my healing journey of getting healed from all the traumas that came in my life and the trials. 38 years ago, I gave myself to the Creator, and I asked Him, please forgive me of all the wrongdoings I had done. Today, I want to be a new person. And I prayed for Him to give me wisdom, knowledge, and understanding so I can help the younger generations or any other people that need help in our community. We're from Chisasibi. Chisasibi means big river. I guess you heard about the hydro project that Robert Barraza made on our river with those big dams. That's where we come from. And today, we're still suffering from that. I notice through life, us Crees and all other tribes, I find that when the government wants to do something on our lands, he always tells us at the last minute, and we don't have a choice to get ready in preparing. It's a last minute deal always. And I've found out that through the years that it takes time for a survivor to heal him or herself. I started 38 years ago, going to any kind of workshop or any meeting that I could go, especially the TRC. Our boss, George E. Pachano, used to arrange these trips for us to go to the TRC. Excuse me. And that's when I started my healing. When I was raised at the school, I didn't think myself as a Cree. I thought I was a white lady. It's only recently that I tried to learn the teachings of the elders of our land. And then it slowly came back, realizing that even though my grandfather was non-status, his father was from Scotland, I considered myself now as a Cree elder. And what I wanted to really express is, I wouldn't be sitting here speaking to you people if it wasn't for the language that I had learned, the English language. I wouldn't be able to speak to you and express my feelings and thoughts to you. In some ways, residential schools had good things, and sometimes there were a lot of bad things in our lives. But I learned in the long run, listening to my spirit. We all have spirits, and each individual person has to choose what path they have to take in life, if it's the good or bad. And it's up to us individuals. What do you want to follow? And I took the right path, I thought, the good path in the journey of healing. And I just want to tell you a bit of what happened last summer. I was asked by our Grand Chief, there's 11 communities in all that we are under the Cree Nation government. We just started that recently. And our Grand Chief's name is Mandy Galmasti. She asked me if I was interested in meeting the Pope when he came to Quebec City. First of all, it was Rome, but my children didn't want me to go to Rome. They thought I'd get lost. But I was really happy to be able to see the Pope in person and take his hand and talk to him. There were about 18 of us survivors there in Quebec City that met him in a room. George and his wife was the people from GCCB and me. And these other tribes, they all had gifts for the Pope. They brought these gifts from their reserves or communities. And Mary Louise was George's wife, that she was in front of me. There were others that already went to see the Pope. We were sitting in the row, going up to him, each person showing their gratitude or whatever they wanted to say to him. And he told us, you only have 2 minutes. What am I going to say in 2 minutes? So I had a message for him. My spirit always gives me messages or dreams. And when I went up to take his hand, it was a great, awesome feeling that I had. And I told him, I don't have no gift for you, but I am bringing a message from my spirit to let you know. I said, I know your position is really high authority. You're the intercessor for your people, for the Catholic people, I told him. And I have a message for you. And this message I'm going to tell you. I told him, you must know the Lord's Prayer that the Creator sent to us to use in our everyday life. And he nodded his head. I said, in the Lord's Prayer, there's a sentence in there that I received to give to you. And it goes, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us. And I said, I speak from my heart. As survivors, we too, in our lives, have to do something too. Even though if it hurts, even if it's painful, we have to tell our transgressors, I forgive you. That's a hard part to say. But in order for these nations to get healed, this is what they need, to forgive their transgressors. Because what we are carrying through life from the residential schools is a very heavy burden. And if we don't forgive them, it's always going to be in us. And it won't be able to get out of our system. We won't be able to get it out of our system unless we tell them. I'm sorry to say this, but this is what I was told to tell the Pope. And I believe it because I'm on my healing journey. Flashbacks come back when they talk about missing children. Every child matters. We will get them back if we do our part in asking them for their forgiveness and us saying that. We are not put in this world to carry that grudge to our graves. When it's time to meet our Creator, this is what He's going to tell us. You didn't forgive your brother like I asked you to do. So, this is my message that I gave the Pope, and I'm also trying to tell the people of the residential school. Forgive them, even though if it's really hard to say. in the long run, we have to think about the future generations. How are they going to be healed if we don't heal ourselves first? This is very important. If we heal ourselves, then our children are healed if they see us in a different spirit. And then they pass it on to their grandchildren, and then our great-grandchildren. So this is what my message was, and thank you for listening to me. I appreciate that I am able to relay this message to you people that are listening. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and my love goes out to everyone here and all over. Thank you.
Miigwech, Kananaskamadan. Just a reminder, we have this session until 12 o'clock. I see 6, maybe 7 people lined up at the microphones, and I know that we will not get through everyone. A couple of things. A note, this is an opportunity to ask specific questions and have some dialogue with the elders that spoke this morning and the youth that spoke this morning. If we could do our best to try and focus on that. Also, I know I did say this before everybody came back. We know that you all have a story to share. Everyone that is here has a story to share. There will not be an opportunity for everyone to speak or share that story in this forum, but a reminder that the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation is here. They are gathering stories. They are gathering statements. So we encourage you, please go see them, sit down and have that discussion and share your story. That way it can be documented, it can be recorded, and it's very important to do that. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and recognize those that I saw at the microphones first. So I'm going to start at the back, my left, and then we're going to come around this way, and then we'll just keep coming this way. So back to my left, please. Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Ani, Jalen Asinaway, Indigenous cause, Sagamuk, Anishinaabek, meanwhile, Serpent River First Nation, Ndonjaba. I just wanted to mention on how important it is that every single person here is affected by the residential school system. Every single generation here has some sort of deep-rooted trauma that stems right from the abuse that happened within those schools. Every single one of us were affected by those schools. Some of the people in the room are the survivors of the residential school and have trauma from the mental, physical, and spiritual abuse that happened in those schools. Even after all those schools all the schools closed, the torment didn't end there. For years, for decades, our elders were telling their stories of their abuse, trying to get heard and get some sort of justice. However, it breaks my heart to this very day that there are still people out here that don't even know that the schools existed, people in denial that these schools were good and not abusive, or the people who believe that the schools were a thing of the past and we should all get over it. I am a third-generation survivor. My great-grandparents went to the schools. My great-grandmother went to the Spanish residential school. Once she left and started her family with my great-grandfather, when my granny and her siblings were being brought into this world, my great-grandparents left their home reservation of Serpent River to Toronto. So my granny, my great-aunts, and my uncles wouldn't have to endure the abuse my great-grandpa had to endure. The thought that if my great-grandma didn't pick up and leave her home reservation, my granny would have had to endure the same abuse that her mother had to go through, and that thought breaks my heart. But it's a point that needs to be made. If my granny were to end up in those schools, that would only leave my mom's generation and my generation who didn't go into those schools, only 2 generations. My family has a lot of trauma that comes from those schools, as 3 out of my 4 great-grandparents went to those schools. 3 out of 4 on my mom's side. I remember being told by many people my age, "Why do you keep talking about residential schools? They're a thing of the past. It's not a big deal anymore." I talk about these schools because those schools have taken so much from me and my people, our teachings, our language, children's literal lives. How can I just forget about it when I'm in a room right now full of survivors who have been through unimaginable abuse and torment only because they were simply born Indigenous? The trauma caused by residential schools is unbearable, so a lot of our people turn to substance abuse to try to forget about the trauma. My great-grandfather and grandmother who went to those schools, my great-grandfather would drink alcohol to forget the trauma, and by doing that, he passed down his trauma to my Shomas, who is an alcoholic who uses alcohol as a coping mechanism to forget his pain. And then he passed that trauma down to my mother, who was an addict, to cope with her trauma, which she then passed down to me. I'm not gonna hide the fact that I struggle with my mental health. It's hard for some people to talk about their issues, but the thing about trauma is you can't just try and forget it and deny it ever happened. You can only bottle up so emotions until you lose it. Believe me, I know. A thing I learned from my personal healing journey is that you need to talk about the trauma, feel all the emotions of anger and grief and sorrow. It's really hard to open up, but it is essential, as we as a community been through so much, but we are all so resilient. We are strong when we are working together. If we all help each other cope with the trauma, the pain, and the suffering those schools have caused our people, and when I mean all of us, I mean all like, and when I mean all of us, I mean all, like I said, the trauma lies within all of us in different ways. We need to deal with the trauma every single generation in this room. We need to work together in unity to help each other heal, not just for us, but for the future generations to come. Miigwech.
Miigwech, a very passionate, strong youth voice. So I'm going to go to the other microphone in the back, on the back to my right. Go ahead.
Gaila Kasla, Nugu Amguik Sisalas. I'm Namgis, Sintiantle, Ugwame is Uzi Stalas. My name is Ivy Pierce. I'm from Alert Bay, BC. I wanted to speak yesterday, but it was, many of us had too much to say in so little time. I've been taught to speak from my Noki, from my heart. However, I'm going to do my best to stay on topic and speak about our Indigenous and traditional laws. My grandmothers are our knowledge keepers and our matriarchs. I was raised in a traditional manner with my aunts, my grandmother and great-grandmother who spoke Kwakwala. I'm from the Kwakwala-speaking people. I am Namgis, Mamaliliakla, and Kwagilth. But I also have many lineages. I'm Heiltsuk, Haisla, Tsimshan, Tlingit, and Quinault. I appreciated what John Burrow said yesterday about our traditional laws, which have analogies that resonate today. We had potlatch laws in our territory, and our potlatch laws were outlawed along with our way of life. And during that time of the potlatch laws being banned, our people still practiced our culture, our traditions, language, singing, dancing. and they were incarcerated for it. My great-great-grandmother Aku, who only spoke Kwakwala, was put into prison. Earlier today, an elder said that we need to know our creation stories, and our creation stories are our identity. For us in the Namgis people, it is our Namimas. I come from the Sisiantle, which is the Sambing clan, and my name, Gwixisalis, comes from our Uguime, which is a hereditary chief for the Namgis people. Growing up, I didn't understand why I was told stories all the time and I had to sit and be quiet and listen to the same stories over and over again. These stories were told to me because my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, my mother, my father, all residential school survivors, 60 scoop survivors, boarding school, day school survivors, and missionary school survivors ensure that our culture would stay alive. I'm not a fluent Kwakwala speaker. I struggle with speaking my language. But when I had my son, who is my Sassam, I promised myself that I would teach him his culture and our language, our stories, our legends, and our history. Someone yesterday, one of the speakers who's a residential school survivor, spoke of not having a name, but being a number. That made me think about the daunting statistics that we have from being institutionalized for generations, incarcerated in jail, having our medical numbers, a ministry case number, police report numbers from being missing, murdered Indigenous women or children, treaty numbers, coroner numbers for fatal statistics from overdoses, being a missing and murdered Indigenous woman, girl, child, or two-spirited individual, which also includes our boys and our men. And furthermore, those coroners' reports of individuals passing away from suicide and alcohol and/or liver failure. Now we have the statistics from the TRC, which stated there were 3,300 unmarked burials. The TRC was in 2013, and 10 years later, we are still working to see how many children have gone missing and been murdered at these institutions. Matthew Kinch, who is BC's community relation and coordinator for residential schools, said that that statistic is 4,100 and still rising. So today I would like to make some recommendations for the mandate and the framework that Kimberly Murray will be putting forth to the federal government after her 2 years of these national gatherings. I would like to ask that the federal government, provincial, municipal, local governments follow through with these recommendations, and that it doesn't sit on the side of a desk like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission or the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. We need to give our youth, who are powerful and strong, the resources to heal from the intergenerational trauma that stems from the residential schools. They need to have land-based healing and have the resources to revitalize their language, their culture, their singing, their dancing, to reclaim their identities. Us as nations need funding to engage with communities whose children were placed in our communities and institutions that occupied our territories to learn their protocols for burials of their kidnapped children who still remain in our communities in unmarked burials. We need to ensure that institutions that work with Indigenous people in the criminal justice system, the medical system, the education system, social workers, have cultural safety training, and always practice trauma-informed care. We can use our traditions and our culture to heal from Indian residential schools. We need to get past the generations of the multi-generational trauma of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. That leads to our mental health diagnosis and our dangerous coping mechanisms of creating us to commit self-harm with alcohol and substance use. Lastly, I'd like to say that we need to uphold justice for the Indian residential school children who were murdered in these institutions and have those individuals held accountable. These individuals are still alive, and the laws and the policies created by the Canadian government hide their crimes. And in order for us to have justice, these people need to face justice with Canadian laws. Our ancestors' spirits still live within us, and those who are being recovered from these unmarked burials are being reborn and are the 7th generation. Gayla Kasla, Kimberly Murray, for your strength. Thank you to all the residential school survivors, because without you surviving, living in these institutions, we would not be alive. So thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a safe journey home and practice self-care after this event so that you leave feeling uplifted. Gayla Kasla.
Miigwech, thank you for those very strong, clear recommendations. So thank you. To the front, my right, go ahead.
My name is Andre Baer. I'm an articling student with the Special Interlocutors Office. And I just wanted to very quickly ask the elders panel specifically about the spirits of our children who may or may not be settled from being placed in unmarked burials. From your opinion and experience through Indigenous laws and legal practices, where do you think the spirits of those children are? And if they are having troubles crossing over, how do we ensure in the physical world that they get to the Creator?
Okay. I'll give you a perspective that was shared with me. In our tradition is that whenever there's a person that, in this situation with the children, we had a ceremony in our place, at our area. We had 142 that were reported in our area. So we had a ceremony. We acknowledged all the names that were there. And in our tradition, we tell them to go on their journey. And what we say is we call them by their name. And that's why it's important in our tradition to have your name, the name that you have. We'll call them and we'll tell them, and that's this way they go through a journey. And in our traditions, they pass our ceremonial grounds, that picture I had with the Sundance ground, and they go on all the way to the great sand hills. And that's when they meet all those that have passed on. And they get ready to go on to a journey of what we call through the Makoyo Husukwe, the Milky Way. So what we do is we do acknowledge, we'll call them by name, and we'll tell them to it's time for you to go. And because what happens there, in how they lost their life, is like we don't know how they lost. So sometimes they think that they're still here because nobody has told them to go on with their journey. And that's why it's important for us in our tradition, and we call them, okay, go on your journey. And this way, and that's a tradition that we have in dealing with those that are missing. And we had that ceremony in, I think it was 2-3 years ago, in September the 30th, back on a reservation. There were 2 sites we attended to. There was one at St. Mary's Residential School. We acknowledged each name that was shared with us, and then we went to the Anglican. We did the same there, and that's how we handle that.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre, for that question. I just wanted to also acknowledge Andre, one of my students back home, along with many young people that I'm training to do ceremony. But to the question, I spoke earlier about being a Ksapatamuino, which is a lodge that I do call in the spirits, and I get tied up. And in that particular lodge, we are able to help anybody that is requiring help. These ceremonies continue to exist for these very specific purposes, and one of them is to help those that pass on. And in this case, the children that were found are seemingly stuck in those places because they didn't have the opportunity to live or to have a connection, and in some cases knowing their own tradition and culture. Of course, being born in those places and dying, they were innocent in their birth, and I think they are innocent in their death. For instance, recently we did one of the night lodges, and a lady came forward and she brought 67 babies that were found up north there in one of the communities, or a couple of communities that they were doing the ground search. And she specifically brought offerings protocol to help those babies move forward. And in our ceremonies, there are that connection, the altar in which we set up to call the spirit, and brought those little ones in to the lodge, and they were taken and taken home by the grandfathers that came there and the grandmothers. So there is ways to do this, but it takes people amongst the communities to reach out to those that have been given the responsibility of carrying some of those ceremonies. And there's also another way, and I think in which would help them, is to do feasting. And each community can do a feast to, have them come to that feast, and maybe family members that know of their children or their families that were in those schools can bring protocol to that feast and, call out their names, and then have them feasted and then taken home. So I think there are several ways, and all the nations in our land, I think we have been given those kinds of responsibilities and gifts to do that. So I'm hoping that this also can be shared with the non-First Nation people, particularly the governments and the churches that have perpetuated this act, and and have them involved in the process to help them, because I'm sure they're feeling awful about what's being discovered, and the guilt and the shame as well. So we need to help everyone that's affected, and that includes all people in this country, to move forward. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this very unfortunate situation. So I hope that helps answer the question. Andre, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the very good question. Also to Elders Keith and Fred for responding. A reminder, the idea behind this session is any questions for the Elders panel and the youth panel that are here. I know lunchtime is coming. We won't get to everybody, but I'm going to do my best to go all the way around. So microphone in the front. Go ahead.
What the hell do I do now? Thank you. Yeah. All right. Dante Gakyo, Awewake. Nitsiagasan Stephanie Belgard. So I'm Stephanie Belgard. I'm from the Little Black Bear First Nation, but I'm employed by the Star Blanket Cree Nation as a researcher for the Coppell Indian Residential School, or Lebret Indian Residential School. And I have a question, because I'm a researcher and I work closely with finding the names of children, the nuns, and the priests, and I'm getting all that information in. And I just want to know, I guess it's towards the elders or maybe even to the youth, but specifically to the elders, how do you feel about us as researchers finding these names? How do you feel about all of that? Because that's what I'm genuinely curious about, because I work closely, and so I'm curious. That's all. Hi.
What a great question. Thank you. I pondered that as well. You know, and one of the things that came up during those kinds of discussions when we came to ceremony was who are we talking about? And it's very difficult to really find out, or in my opinion anyway, to really know who those babies were and so forth, and the families that were impacted. And so for me, there are, I think, in their own documentation under the different churches, perhaps in their archives, there must be some type of names of the people that were there. And those people that were there must have had, siblings or other friends that were there with them that maybe have gone through that experience. For example, when I talked about my grandmother talking about her friend losing, she was impregnated and they heard the baby, and then the next morning the baby was gone. So her friend that survived may have talked to them, to her friend and to her relative about what happened to them. And those stories, according to my grandmother, were kept secret because there was so much fear around disclosing that at that time. And so unfortunately for me, I think a lot of the people and there might be some here in the room that have some of those stories shared with you, or if you've been in there and you've heard or seen some of that. But I think in our way, in our ceremony, one of the saving graces of this for me is that when we go to the Creator, when we ask the Creator and the grandfathers and grandmothers about how to reach out to those little ones, they know who they are. The Creator knows each and every one of the children that are born. We're known by the Creator and our grandfathers and grandmothers. So that identity is already recorded with the Creator. So the children, when they go home, they'll be going home with full, in my opinion, in full knowledge and knowing who they are as well, and go home to that spirit world. And so for me, I think that's what helps me feel okay and affords me the ability to keep working on this, keep working towards finding out that truth, finding out the real truth of what's happened. So I hope that helps a little bit in your question. I don't think we'd be able to get to the full answers of all these questions because a certain page or part of that history is gone, is lost. It's people, some of the elders are not here anymore. In Manisiak, we're missing out on those, running short of elders that have those stories. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Just in addition to your question there about how do I feel about that, it's totally unacceptable. Of course it's unacceptable. But the thing is, back when the child, when they passed on, like there was current legislation since Confederation that were there. So whoever was involved in the residential schools, they had the audacity not to contact the parents. So that's why it's like for us, I am victimized by that. I have relatives that were passed on in both the Anglican and the Roman Catholic residential schools. And we were never notified. For whatever reason, I'll never know. So again, it kind of flips back to to who's entitled to the legislation. At that particular time, it appears, as history has indicated about genocide, they didn't consider us Niitsitapi, like who we were. And again, with the program that the India Residential School had at that particular time, there was legislation that was there. Why wasn't anybody notified? So in that sense there, on the flip side of that, when we were notified that we had 142 on our reservation, we acknowledged that we had to do a ceremony to acknowledge those that have passed on. We didn't just ignore it. We acknowledged each, and we went through each name. And because of the fact that some of the families some of them have elderly now, we acknowledged each name, and we told them, "Stama back, going to go on your journey. We don't know what happened to you, but again, in our teachings, in our creation story, there's a component about forgiveness. Yes, it's really hard to think about that. Like I was traumatized, but there's a sense there in where you have to. Part of the creation story that I shared with you, there is an element about forgiveness, and that's when the sacred gifts were bestowed upon us, and that include forgiveness, love, give up, all those things there, the truth and honesty. So I just hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Very important question, actually a very important question in the work that's happening. And I think the way I understood your question was you have work to do. And I'll say it in my language. I don't know if I can say it in English. Is the way I understood your question, is that are you doing the right thing? You're asking, am I doing the right thing? Is it okay? You don't want to bring anything upon yourself for doing the wrong thing. And I think, I can't speak for Elder Fred, but I think what I heard the elder say is you're doing the right thing. So, miigwech. I will go at least to one more. The microphone in the back with the black sweater. Go ahead.
My name is Michael. My name is Michael Chena. I'm a survivor of the residential school system. I traveled with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for 4 years, and I attended 2 residential schools from 1958 to 1968. I grew up in a Cree community on Treaty 9 territory along the shores of James Bay, formerly known as Rupert's Land. The descendants of the colonial descendants and the biased right-wing factions continue to deny the horrific legacy of residential schools and colonialism. We need to we need to assert our inherent rights as Indigenous people for future generations. And truth, justice, and reconciliation dialogue is a journey of healing. And also a commitment to restoring relationships with Indigenous peoples. The federal Liberals pledge to implement and adopt the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples to reform the status quo. And this Indigenous legislation could fundamentally change Confederation. All my relations. Miigwech.
Miigwech. I am looking at the time. It is past 12 o'clock. Is that, I can't tell, way in the back? Is that Patrick? I see a nod. Okay. Patrick, if you can make it as brief as possible, we'll take one more last speaker and then we'll break for lunch. I can't really see, but I think that's Patrick. Go ahead.
Nanaskamon. Just at this time, with all the processes and the teachings that I've been unfolding for my children and my grandchildren, it's important to mention from me in regards to what is being brought into this hallway, which is food that supplies the most in regards to our survival and the impact that it is disrupted during the time of residence at school. It's important for me to mention people need to eat. People need to feed their spirits. And I see that. But one of the things that I want to mention when I mention that is water. It's important for me to say the information of human rights. They say as long as the sun rises, as long as the water flows, as long as there's grass, and as long as there's native people here. And the human factor that we are living under, especially the need of water because of how we were created in it, but at the same time, is the human and the water, the right to live, the right to have that inherent right to live here today. The word human right comes from that water in what it outlines from our teachings and from our natural laws, the existence of human right through the woman. So I just want to leave that at this time because it's very important. We feed and eat and feast and think about at this time with all those ones that we are visiting and spending time in regards to where and what happened in these heavy-duty colonized prisons that created towards genocide. I just want to leave at that. Naskaman. Hey, hey.